Ja, dann erstmal herzlich willkommen zum heutigen Plantation Tasting, wo wir die Ehre haben, die liebe Alexandre Gabriel begrüßen dürfen. So, thank you for coming here, having us as your practicants.
Thank you so much. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
it's the first time here in the shop.
First time,
So
it is true.
Very proud.
I see you many times.
Yes,
but
we see
first
you many
time
times
in the Caribbean.
in small islands at the bar. So you have some nice liquids for us, and I think so. The best way is you take over.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's a great pleasure.
Thanks.
Well,
Yes, ich wollte nur etwas sagen, bevor dass wir anfangen, weil es so die Tradition, dass ich so kurz der Alexandre vorschlage, sozusagen, oder
I don't know what he says, so I hope it's okay. You tell me after.
So, der Alexandre ist der Masterblender, aber auch der Besitzer von Maison Ferrand. So, der hat die Firma Ferrand im Jahre 1989 erworben. Und was ist wichtig zu wissen, ist, dass der hat dann Gin Citadel kreiert 1996 und Plantation Rum oder Planterray 1999. Was es wichtig ist, dass der ist immer noch der einzige Besitzer, wir haben keine Investoren hinter uns, so das heißt, wir machen, was wir wollen und wir sind 100% unabhängig. Was ich auch sagen wollte, so Alexandre hat in 2017, er war vom Contribution Outstanding of Distilling von der American Distillate als beste Masterblender gewonnen und wir haben auch ein paar Medaillen, würde ich sagen, mit Planterray und Plantation gewonnen. Genau, das Tasting wird auf English. You didn't understand anything, but I was just presenting.
I hope it was good.
Yeah.
It's still fine, so.
It was good? Okay, all right. Okay, wonderful.
When I let you the word.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. We're a small group, so it's wonderful. You can ask me any questions. I'm not so good at marketing, but I know production well. So I don't know what he said about me, but I run production. I'm the owner also of Maison Ferrand, both in Cognac. So I live in between Cognac, Barbados. I live in Barbados, West Indies Rum Distillery, and then Jamaica, National Rum. Jamaica, as you know, is Long Pond and Clarendon, but also Hinswood, which is a sleeping distillery that is going to sleep, I think, for a long time, unfortunately, but where we do the aging, in Jamaica. So today, just wanted to do a little review. These are single casks. So in the line of, come in, and in the line of Plantation and Planterray, I'll talk about the evolution of the name. The single cask is something where I wanted to pay tribute to the tradition of rum when people reuse the barrels. Because right now, when the 99.999% of rum is aged in bourbon barrels. And you know why. There's plenty of them. They're not very expensive. And they work well. So, but a long time ago, people were using many other type of barrels. Many. Why? Because a long time ago, there was no containers. The way to ship liquid, the only way to ship liquid, was a barrel. So if you were a lord in the Caribbean, a well-to-do person, and you imported claret, or Madeira, or port, or cognac, you would import yourself a few barrels. And then these barrels would never come back empty. They would go back to France or anywhere, Germany and so on, with rum inside. Or these barrels would be used to age locally. Barrels were going back and forth. So it was a long tradition to use these other barrels as what we call the aging in the Caribbean usually was vatted. That was the historical fact. And so I was thinking it would be great to study rum with different type of barrels. So it started about, I want to say, we call the single cask collection. So with Plantation, we have what we call the blends. That's one range. We have the single vintage. So think of a blend a little bit like a dish that's well made on the back burner where you take time and its complexity and so on. Think of a vintage as like sashimi. It's just, and then with the single cask that we're going to be tasting, we explore different type of barrel use. So the idea of a barrel is not to take over. In the Caribbean, every 2 years, all the master blenders, master distillers, or their assistant meet for 1 week. It was 3 weeks ago in St. Lucia. It's called the Alcohol School. So we learn alcohol and we invite people so this year we invited the guys who are in charge of barrel aging and barrels for Jack Daniels, because everybody buys barrels from them. And they were saying for them, barrel is so important, it's more than 60% of the taste. No, not me talking, him teaching us. Because remember, the alcohol school is everybody's sharing knowledge. So it's 1 week about yeast, about everything. And it's very, very technical. And I like to say that we don't look at rum the same way. Rum, the barrel, is more like the salt and pepper. It is not the dish. It is not 60%. It should be 20, 15, 20, 25. I grew up on a farm in South Burgundy, and the barrel in Burgundy, we don't like the barrel to take over. But also think about it. In our case, the raw material is cane, either cane syrup, cane juice, cane, in our case, a lot of cane molasses, and it's a very expressive raw material. So the barrel is kind of take a backseat. Yet, bourbon barrel is one thing, but as you know, with the Planterray, we do cognac double aging, but here was to study different things. So we're going to be talking for this. I want to explain the single cask concept. Is very simple. Is what would work the best. I'm sorry for the simplicity of the analogy, but sometimes you have a friend and then another friend, and you think they would be a great couple, and you organize a dinner so they meet. I do that with barrels and rum all the time. Is how would they work well together? And doesn't mean they're the same. Sometimes they have similar characteristics to bring forward the characteristics. Sometimes they're complementary and they will push forward the main element. And we will explore that today. All right? So that's, I'm trained, I don't know what he said, so I apologize for the repeat. I am trained as a master blender in cognac. It's 20 years. Before you, there's only 23 of us. And so, where you use barrels. Now, I have a little question for you, a little guess. Cognac is a small village. 20,000 people live in Cognac. 20,000 people. Do you know how many people make barrels in Cognac region? Little companies who make cognac, the barrels.
Only in Cognac?
Only in Cognac.
Maybe 1 or 2.
1 or 2? Cognac and the little region, right? Just around. It's a countryside. Somebody wants to give another guess? 550. Because it's
How many companies are there?
550 little companies. Yeah.
Little companies.
No, that's companies.
Really? Okay.
So some are very small, some are bigger. But why? Is because barrels, think about it. Cognac is millions of barrels, and everybody, it's a little bit like the French with their cheese, cheeses. There's a lot of different cheeses. And every barrel maker has a different style, a different way of doing this. Some make small barrels, big barrels, some are vat. I could show you, I have a vat maker who has like 10 vats, maybe I like him. We're talking about the price right now, and so, this know-how about barreling is very important. And when you train as a master blender, you know how to take a barrel apart, rebuild a barrel, change a cap, change a stave, and so on. Just wanted to throw that in. So that aspect is very, very important.
But they're all the same wood, or they use different types of wood also?
That's a great question. So if you get me going on this, I'll tell you, many different types of oak, but until 1983, cognac could be aged in any type of wood. In 1983, I don't know why, it was narrowed down to oak. It can be oak from any type of origins. But you can toast a barrel. In the morning, when you eat bread, you take a bread like that, you chew it, it's one taste. You put it in the griller. A little bit, it's a little sweeter, a little more, it gets a little bitter. If you forget about it because you're reading a book, then it's charred. Flavor of the bread is very different. It's the same bread. Now think about it. Now in cognac we do this, but also sometimes we apply a lot of heat for a short period of time. Sometimes little heat for a long time. And there's as many recipes as people, companies, times maybe 10 or 20. So you can have many different ways. Some barrel makers believe in toasting the caps of the barrels. Some don't, etc., etc. I'm I'm not doing a master class on barreling, but it would take a long, long time anyway. And to your question, this is a very important question. Until 1983, every cognac barrel maker knew how to make barrels from any type of wood, not just oak, chestnut, acacia, mulberry, etc., etc. And that knowledge is still there. I treasure that knowledge. And I'm trying to protect it by buying barrels. In rum, it's legal to be able to use different woods. My dream...
Whiskey as well in Germany, in Europe?
Not in Scotland, but in Europe, you're right. Well done. Ireland. I have a good friend, you know, Alex Chatko, the guy who's a master distiller at Teeling. He stays at my house in Cognac, and he's like, I love the French guys. You make these beautiful barrels.
Is there a rum called Renegade Rum?
Yes.
Renegade Cognac.
Our Renegade barrel, that's what we do. It's to celebrate cognacs with using these different barrels, but I cannot call it cognac, even though it's cognac. I call it eau de vie de vin. I want to, of course, we do legal things, but we want to change this and go back to the core. So this knowledge still exists. You have old guys that still know how to make beautiful barrels with cherry tree, from a cherry tree. And in France, the wood is sustainable. There's a government you cannot cut a tree if it's not sustainable. It's run by the government. And so it's called Organisation Nationale des Forêts, ONF, that runs that. So you can, you know. And so anyway, that's a different subject. But to that point, by the way, rum can use a different type of woods, including exotic woods that are very historical. For example, I've studied a lot in Paraguay. Paraguay uses a wood that's local, called incienso, and incienso is incredible. I'm not supposed to tell you, but one day we'll do a Paraguay rum. Angelique, if she's watching, she's going to be mad at me at marketing, but we're going to do because we're aging it. You know, we work with Fortin there. It's wonderful that they have 2 distilleries. And I'm fascinated with this local wood because they're too far to bring in Americano barrels, cheap American, but they make their own, either barrel or vats. That's incienso. Of course, you know, Brazil does a lot of cachaças with different wood, grapia, you know, but also cabreúva, amburana, and so on. So that's quite a few, and of course I've studied that. I'm writing a book about the art of master blender. I have a paragraph about the different type of woods, and I think that's one of the magics of making. So we sometimes use different woods. We call that wood wonders with Alex, you know, with the rum and so on. So it's just wanted to touch on this since you asked the question. So we're going to do a little review. Again, don't hesitate to stop me if you have any questions. I want to show you we are going to do, you know, 2 rums from Barbados, from West Indies Rum Distillery. You know, Fiji, rum called Fiji, crazy distiller that I love, you know, and so you're going to taste this. Obviously, Belize. I love the team at Travelers, you know, and I have 4 masters that taught me about rum. Rommel, you know, Perdomo was one of them in Belize. This is a first. Jaws is one of the marks of West Indies Rum Distillery that was never bottled as such. So it's bottled as such, just a few hundred bottles is a Confrérie du Rhum. But our friend here found a way to get bottles for you here at the stores. And I brought a little secret that I promise you never tasted because it's never really made it out of Barbados except in my suitcase. So, you know, you're going to be tasting this as well. So we're going to do a little review. So I don't know, you know, as you know, I created Citadel in 1996. My training is cognac with Ferrand Cognac. The range, as I said, you know, we have the blends, we have the vintages, we have the single cask, and sometimes we do the extremes. The extremes is when there's an old barrel and it's there and it's beautiful on its own, and we create an extreme expression. I created recently with a great rum distiller, Vivian Wisdom, from Vivian worked at Clarendon, but also his last job before joining us 5 years ago, he was a master distiller at Hamden, and we created what they call medicinal rum. You know, the rums that was the ancestor of spice rum. It's not with flavors, it's made with the real thing. So beautiful rum from Long Pond and Clarendon, using a little bit of local ginger and some vanilla, you know, we call cane rock. So that's some of our creation. That's didn't do the presentation, but I know it very well. That's where I worked for many, many years. This is the office, and I live upstairs. You know, I live in my office. People say, how far is your commute? I just open the door, and everybody's there. It's a farm. It's a farm. This is guest house if you come. We're, obviously typical cognac distillery. This is my office and distillery back in Barbados. So, we do, this is an old distillery. I'm sorry if I'm in the way. I'm going to move. And so it's an old distillery, Stays Distillery. That was magical. And I fell in love with that distillery 30 years ago. When I saw that distillery, I saw the level of knowledge. And this distillery was a brainchild, or a German guy actually, Joe Stade. And he was a free spirit of the late 1800s. He was a genius, coppersmith. He had 40 patents. And this guy wanted to show the world how to make the best rum. Very modest. And he went to Barbados, the country who invented rum, and bought a space, we think was a distillery there, a spring garden. Why spring garden? The water, very important to make rum. Also right on the sea to import his equipment, ship out his rum. And also this space was, magical for the water, as I just said, for you. And so he started his distillery. Some pieces of distillery are very old. And also he, like me, collected pot stills. So, so it's a fun thing to do. And so we have very, very old type of equipment, and we'll discuss about that. This is Long Pond, so this is northern style. We call it northern style Jamaican rum, so working with mud pit. And Clarendon, which is southern style, in Jamaica. I forgot to tell you,
Is it part of yours?
Yeah, I will explain this. It's a good question. In the 1950s, after Second World War, the palate of people started to like spirits that were lighter and lighter and lighter. So I don't know if it's in this presentation, but I will touch on this. Every spirit has water, H2O, alcohol, ethanol, and the other stuff, 1%. That 1% is everything I work for. What is it? Some people call that congeners, some others we call volatile substances. These are the elements of taste and flavors. Now, the more you have, we measure them in grams per hectoliter, 100 liter. The more you have of it, the heavier is the rum. The name is a heavy rum. So on all of our bottle, if you look on the back, you have, what we call congeners or volatile substances. That's the weight of a rum. Jamaicans, true Jamaicans like rum with weight. When a rum is too light, the ultimate insult in Jamaica, you know what it is? It's a silent spirit. I can't hear anything, It's an insult that's 150 years old. It's a lived through time. So what happened is 1950s, things become, people wanted more and more neutral spirits. What is the lightest spirit category? Vodka, right? So vodka was king, like industrial vodka, because, some artists know they use fruits, but that's different. And so what happens? Jamaica is in trouble. Barbados is in trouble. These deliver a lot of flavors. So some went, you'll see, I'll let you imagine the brand names. Some rum became very, very light. And that's maybe it was a way to survive, to be honest. And some tried to maybe make it a little sweeter, like bourbon or whatever. Everybody tried a way. In Jamaica, Barbados, a lot of distilleries got a lot of trouble. And there was 3 mystical distilleries in Jamaica, Long Pond, Clarendon, and Hinswood, and they were going out of business. And the government, in its wisdom, a Jamaican government says, we're going to save them. So they bought them, and the government realized, wait a minute, we are government. We don't know anything about distilling. So they contacted West Indies Rum Distillery and the Demerara distillers to say, can you help? So to this day, that was a long time ago, and that was way before my time, and to this day, West Indies Rum Distillery still owns, it's a reference technical distillery. It's one of the, and still owns a third of national rum in Jamaica. The government still owns, so we meet very often, with the government, with the West Indies, and with the chairman of Kumar Samaru from El Dorado, DDL. So that's very interesting. So that's also the 2 distilleries. Obviously, they are from the 1700s, the 2 distilleries.
I think it was the most clever move of yourself, buying West Indies distilleries and having part of the Jamaican stuff with it. and nobody knew that. I mean, this was a cool, outstanding.
I don't know.
industry. You're so lucky that you have.
I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky. It's also a guarantee not to have any cash for the rest of your life. It's true. It's okay. I never had any.
You know, cognac house. There's cash somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the barrels.
Yeah, but cognac is old money.
Yeah, but cognac making, you know, like rum making, it's asset heavy, and that's okay. I'm happy. Like we say, we invest in equipment and in production, and I'm a production guy. But they're wonderful products. Are we tasting?
Yes. This is the first one.
But here we have cylinder.
Will be after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're not tasting cylinder, but I could tell you about cylinder. C'est la bonne présentation, t'es sûr? So I'm telling you real quickly about cylinder. Because cylinder, remember, I've just finished the book on that's going to be out for Tales of Cocktails about I did it with Matt Pietrek. I don't know if you know Matt. A book about the history and techniques of Navy rum. Because, you know, every time I did a presentation and I would be there, it says about Navy rum, I raised my hand. I said, but can you really explain to me what is Navy rum? Because I don't know. And they were like, this is a trick question. Oh, no. I don't know. And the best way to know, it's my third book, is to write a book. So when Matt said he was retiring from Microsoft or stopping his IT career, we decided to do this. So the idea was to study it, to look in the archives, to look at the contracts. And what was about Navy rum was about blending different origins. Rum is one of the only spirits which is part of the culture to blend different origins. And as a master blender, it's a lot of fun to be able to look at the terroirs of rum who are so distinct. If they are true to themselves, they give you such a leverage and so much fun to be able to create these deep, intense, layered rums by using different origins. So I created Cylinder because, you know, we have what we call partner distillers. So we have guys that we live and die together. You know, like the guys in Fiji, Liam is a good friend, and so they know my costs and I know theirs, and we make sure, you know, and we buy some of their bulk. So, you know, and we have a partnership with Saint-Aubin as well in Mauritius, the same way, and a partnership with, I just told you, Fortin in Paraguay. So we work together, we age together the products, and I thought it would be so cool to create a rum with a Barbados rum base. Think about Fiji, baked, nice, very structured, meaty texture, and some fresh cane juice rum from Mauritius in Saint-Aubin. And I created Cylinder. Cylinder is, you know, the sea and the land, because we ship in barrels, as you know, with Planterray. And so here, when it's from Fiji, it's a long trip, you know, inside of barrels, and you have the dynamic aging. So we, I don't know if you know, they'll pour it, but they showed you the bottle. I did this one. As you know, I explained to you, Mauritius, the Saint-Aubin people are wonderful because they grow, we don't put vanilla in this rum, but they grow, I love farming. So that's great. This is Charles Gambeau, you know, over there. As you know, they use bagasse, so they distill over there. This, unfortunately, his father just passed on a motorbike 2 weeks ago. You know, here they have the specific cane, the red cane, you know, from the early 1800s. And, you know, so that's over there. You know, this is the, the aging cellars over there, obviously aging, and they do cane juice and cane molasses. You know, sorry, I'm in front of you, I apologize. In Mauritius, so Saint-Aubin is a great little distillery. They have a pot still and they have a column, you know, that they do. So that's the rum that they poured for you. This is the little column. It was a little column that was making brandy in South Africa, and they brought in and they changed it to a column of rum. So you see the column, it's a little copper column here. So, you know, not a lot of trays. And, you know, this is quite interesting. And of course, we use some Barbados expressions. This is Dinesh, who's the master distiller. Charles, who's the owner, with the little column.
So right now, they just got the cylinder.
Okay, cool.
Because you were talking about it.
Sure.
It's supposed to be after, but
Okay.
we can try
All right, so I have the cylinder right now. It's a new baby. So the idea was to create something by using these 3 terroirs that I thought were wonderful. You know, the hardest part in this blend is to keep Fiji in check, because Fiji takes away right away, you know. And so to have that Fiji full-bodied right in your face, that's there in the background. Barbados is very multi-layered, and obviously some fresh rum from you know, from Mauritius. Obviously the you know, the Barbados rum from West Indies Rum Distillery, you know, in the blend, you know, our home, this is where we work, in West Indies Rum, as you can see. There's actually, I don't know if you know, there's going to be 4 more distilleries soon in Barbados, which is great news.
What?
Yeah, there's going to be 4 more distilleries in Barbados within 2 or 3 years. Yeah. These are the guys working with me. So Andrew, he's writing a PhD thesis about the history, the technical history of rum making. Digger is my hero. Digger has been making rum as a distiller for 44 years. His father, before him, made rum for 47 years. So when you talk to Digger, you talk to 91. Next year, 92 years of rum making at this distillery. He's my hero. When I want to know something about rum making, yes, you can look at a book. You can talk to Digger. You know, sometimes we have an old piece, because Barbados people are like the French people. They don't throw anything away. No French, you need a new church, you keep an old one, you know, and then that's why we have 2,000-year-old. And Barbados is the same way. So we have very old equipment. We have the oldest still in the world there. And so Digger's like, yes, my father told me, and this and that. He said the first time he came to the district, you know, the grass is tall in the Caribbean. And he said, I was not taller than the grass, you know, and he came as a kid. So that's Digger. Dario is a scholar, is somebody who was a university professor about yeast and fermentation. He took a 1-year leave to come and work with us and never went back to the university. He calls the yeast his babies, so his students, I guess, is the yeast. And Don Ben is very virtuoso distiller. Don Ben is a 25 years distiller at West Indies Rum Distillery, was a scholar. You know, when the top students in Barbados are sent by the government to study abroad. And when he came back, very good students, they want to work for West Indies Rum, and he's been the master distiller at West Indies Rum Distilleries. So you can see the equipment. This is, and we have one surprise here, that a bottle of rum from Barbados that from 2000. I tasted it. It's made with this. This is the old Greg. There's a Greg farm. It's a farm in Barbados, and that pot still was bought in the late 1800s, early 20th century. But it was built, as you can see, it was built in 1850. So we will taste a rum made with the old Greg. The old Greg is kind of a funny shape. It has a neck with a double skin, very 19th century technology. I don't know if I get a little technical here, but in the double skin of the neck, you can run water. And if you run water that is cool, you reflux. So like the windows, it fall down. If you put hot water, you encourage distillation. So you can really rectify your rum. Let me explain. When you ferment, you create flavors. When you distill, you select flavors. When you age, you polish, you enhance, you concentrate, and so fermentation, we'll talk about that if you want later, in Barbados and in Jamaica and a lot of islands, is second to none. The knowledge of fermentation is incredible in the Caribbean, but also this is 19th century technology. There's a patent in France by a guy called Stupfler who used that by enhancing, and so you can see from the rivets. So this is the old Greg, and so Fiji. So Fiji, this is a little still that was imported long time ago from Canada. And in Fiji, when the door is breaking, then they use a milk tank door, just to change it because, they don't make the parts anymore. So very little stills. And they have a retort system similar to Jamaicans. The retort system was actually invented by a guy called Edouard Adam in the late 1700s in Armagnac, but then was perfectioned in the UK later on. So, and was really spread out to the Caribbeans in the late 1800s. So you see a little retort, still in Fiji. There's 2 of them. So you can see the sorry about this. Voila, we'll get there. Well, Rumco of Fiji, the rum company of Fiji. This is, yeah, every time. And this is the team. This is Liam, the crazy distiller. You know, and Fiji is far, but it's a beautiful place. And they make incredible rum. The taste of Fiji rum is only the taste of Fiji rum. There's nothing like it. Now, this is the little column over there in Fiji, real quickly. The pot still house, you know, they have a retort stills, as you can see, the double tamper. Now, I want to explain something a little technical here. And maybe you know this. Remember we said in rum, you have water, you have alcohol, and you have the other stuff, congeners, the weight. The more flavors, the less, the lighter. Inside this, you have two elements. You have the esters, and then you have the higher alcohol. Esters, think Jamaica, you know, like the fruit notes and so on and so forth. And the higher alcohol, think like a Guyana, you know, pot still rum, more chocolate, raw chocolate notes. So for example, Jamaica really likes this. Guyana kind of more likes this. Barbados likes both, very balanced. Fiji likes both, quite intense. And then Trinidad likes, you know, the esters, but not so strong. You know, so they each have different styles. Of course, you have exceptions. I'll show you some exceptions. But I just wanted to tell you, now once you know this, you have a full map in your head of the different things. This is Liam and the team there. Now we're going to talk about the single casks, and we're going to taste few single cask expressions. When I work with single cask, I like to usually do barrel swaps with other producers. Not always, sometimes I just buy the barrels, but for example, you know, Guillaume Drouin is a Calvados producer. Steve Nally is the master distiller at Boston. He used to be the guy who made Maker's Mark before. And you know, I love this family. You know, these guys, the Licorice Brothers in Texas, they make a beautiful whiskey. Cedric Emmons, he's doing a beer, you know, and then, you know, Alan Katz is making American whiskey, you know, and so we exchange barrels. Anthony Wills, you know, Kilcoman, yeah. You know, you may know the whiskey, so we swap barrels. Todd Leopold, he has a very specific, wonderful still. Teeling, Alex Shatko, Aaron, we're going to talk about Aaron. This is the Camarena family, the owners of Alteña, you know, a distillery, and so, you know, in Mexico. So just quickly, a little review of West Indies rum before we taste the rum. So what we stand for and what we do at that distillery. And by the way, I wanted to say, we are going to have wonderful things for you to taste, including something that you never tasted before, including the very rare Jaws. The Rockley still didn't make it on time, but I'm sending a bottle here, and he's going to each give you a little bottle of that still that made rum in 1780, the first time, when Louis XVI was in Versailles, you know, the king that got beheaded, and Marie Antoinette. He was still alive when this rum was making, and George Washington was running America. So that still is making rum again, and you're each going to get a little bottle because I'm going to send a big bottle. Didn't arrive in time because we have to. It's not sold, so it has to ship from Barbados. And from Barbados, sometimes it goes through customs, sometimes it doesn't. And so we're going to be discussing about that. Now we're going to taste. Do we have a little review on the different stills of West Indies? I just wanted to do a little. Yeah, because I'd like to do this before we get started. I'm sorry, guys. I always do this, so don't be astonished.
It's very French.
Voila, very French, right? We throw it out of whack. No, voila, sorry. Because what I want to explain a little bit the different stills and the style of Barbados rum and how we do this. This is the stuff we're tasting, and yeah, that's Belize. So yeah, okay. So. Well, we have just the Rockley. I'll talk to you about the Rockley real quick because what I want to do is say how the style of every island. Jamaica likes structured, heavier rum. So when the colon is invented, that makes lighter rum. There's a great book called the Royal Commission to Whiskey and Other Potable Spirits, 1908. It's 800 pages. English lords are there to define what is whiskey.
1909.
1908, 1909, 2 years to write it. And it's great. It's interviews about different producers. So you have Mr. John Walker, Johnny. He's interviewed and he talks about whiskey. You have Mr. You know, all the different guys. And it's very interesting to see that the Jamaicans are there and they are saying, we don't like the colon because it makes silent spirits. Now, so they resisted the colon. There are colons now in Jamaica. But Jamaican style is a heavy forward, fruit forward, but some more commercial expressions are lightened up with colon rum, right? So how is Barbados? Barbados, it's about complexity, depth, and intensity. How you make this? Well, Barbados, remember, school, education, all this is important. Our distillery, we have 9 different types of stills. That's one of them that we just fixed. This one looks not like much, right? Because it was a parking decoration. The head was in the box, you know? And one day, a friend of mine who, used to run John Doerr Distilling, he now lives in Ethiopia, he comes and I said, David, what is this? It's a still, we know. And he says, late 1700s, 1780, it was molded in sand. It was produced locally. It was hand riveted. I show the head. Can it be fixed? He said, I don't know. You're the still collector. So in France, we have guys who are, this is a guy, he has a little shop. There are 4 people, and their job is to fix old stills. You know, you see this American series where they have an old car, they get out of a barn, they chase the chickens out of the drive and they fix it, and by the end of the show, the car has got this huge thing. You've seen these shows, right? And well, these guys do the same thing with stills. So this guy especially. So we shipped it, as you recognize probably from the back, this is Don Ben, a master distiller. He wanted to be there. The government of Barbados sent a letter, says, this still is coming back to Barbados because it's a landmark. I said, of course, right? I said, I don't know, we're taking this still to the doctor to know if it can be saved. So this is the doctor, and I was missing this piece, so I drew the stills myself, and I have the guy from John Doerr correcting it. So we knew from a historian called, he is a PhD, what was the 18th century neck? They were called elephant trunk. Now in Cognac you have a nice elegant swan neck. There's no swan neck, it's an elephant trunk, because you want to get a lot of flavors out, a lot of flavors, right? So we cleaned up, redid the welding. The door is actually that you see here. I can show you. The door was that door. Yeah. So if you clean it, elbow juice, we call it, and then you make, obviously, this still. So now, you see Gaylord right here, is right here. This man spent 3,000 hours with a hammer and anvil. I know because I was there, it's next to my house, and I paid for it. So, he's a wonderful guy. And so, to make that still. And I'm proud to tell you, you'll get to taste that rum. You'll each have a little bottle. It's going to, you have to come back here. But that's something that I'm very proud of. Why we have that still in Barbados? Because we have a big column still we call the Big George. We have a small still with only 23 plates to distill very heavy lees, unfiltered wash. We have a still from 1945 that now is dormant. We have a John Doerr still, the column that's from John Doerr, and then we have the pot still, the Old Greg, and thank you for getting an old bottles from your reserve. It's an Old Greg distillate from 2000, which is really nice, elegant. We call the Classic Greg. We have Classic Greg and Heavy Greg. I can tell from the nose it's a Classic Greg. And then, we have the Rockley, obviously. And we have a still called the Vulcan, which is a still that was invented by East Coast American when the early days of rye whiskey from East Coast, which is like a retort system with just, stills on top of one another. Why does Barbados has all this equipment? Because remember, Barbados is about layering, complexity, and balance. And it's like a painter. If you want this, you need a lot of colors. So it's not by chance that I am involved in Barbados, because to me, as a master blender, imagine all these colors you can choose from. And the relationship between the master blender and the master distiller in Barbados, you always had, in Cognac, the master blender is a higher ranking, and in the Caribbean, the master distiller is have a ranking. In Barbados, the only country where it's both, because they work together. A good master distiller is a good master blender and vice versa. But still, and so I just wanted to touch on this. This is now Digger being very happy. As you can see, when the still comes back to, so you can see the old doors and, the new door, it's the same one. They're made of bronze, obviously. The door was a problem because when we looked at that door, I see Cheers London, and he only made equipment in the 1800s. So I told the guy, I said, no, you're wrong. He said, no. In the 1700s, they didn't make door. So the door was put there later on. In Cognac, we still don't have doors on the still. We just take the neck out and you come in. If you do a door, it's a little more practical. Otherwise, it's like going into your car through the trunk. You can still do it, but it's better to have a door, right? And so that's why they put a door, and he sold it there and then. So we're very proud. This is the Prime Minister of Barbados. She sealed the still, it's a museum piece, so, to be able to make more rum. So just wanted to touch on this before we go to more presentations where we can do this real quickly for you. Ethanol, water, organic compound, remember the taste of rum, the weight, the more you have, the heavier it is. Volatile substances, that's all the elements of flavors, right? And as you can see, you have esters, more fruit forwards, and higher alcohol, more like chocolate, ginger, and so on. Just wanted to say that. The beauty of it, I'm going to tell you a little quick story. My grandmother, I grew up on a small farm. We're making wine, we had cattle and goats for cheese. And I grew up with my grandparents, and farming is a difficult life. And at the end of the day, she'd always drink a snifter of cognac. Not the proper glass, the big snifter. And that's
the proper glass with it.
Yeah, it was not. But it was. Yeah, but not for master blenders, right? It was a drinking glass. You're right. It was a common glass at the time. But where you are right is at the time you used the snifter with a big ice cube. Ice was a luxury product in the 19th century. You had to have a chateau and an ice pit. You froze the ice in the winter and you put it on the ground and you invite your friends in the summer, you pull it out and you have ice. You're a big shot, And so because I got ice, And so now obviously we make ice, it's true. And or if you hurt yourself, you would have ice, as you know. And so big ice cube, always with distilled water at the time. She could know if it was tap water because the water you use in the spirit should be the purest water there is. Don't use mineral water. That's Master Blender 101. Never a hard water. Now, I'll explain later if you're interested. The water from a fermentation should be having all these elements. The water for proofing down should be pure. If you kill a whiskey or you kill a rum, like you might as well not drink it. It's like taking a pike right in the heart, it's dead. And so, why I'm telling you this is, why would she put an ice cube in a glass of cognac? I'm going to show you. All these elements, you don't have to remember. These are chemical compounds, right? And the chemical compounds taste differently to you depending on their concentration. Let me explain. Ethyl acetate, for example, right? Ethyl acetate in a small concentration, you would tell me, sir, Alexander, it smells like fresh grapes. I would agree with you. Higher concentration, same molecule, you would say, smells like fresh banana, then ripe banana, then pineapple, ripe pineapple, then nail polish remove acetone. The same molecule. So when you put an ice cube in a glass of rum or a glass of whiskey, or if you see a master blender adding a little bit of water, it's like taking a book and turning the pages. You're discovering different flavors. You're making your own rum. You're making your own whiskey. And that's why people add a little bit of water or not. We like to bring it down to 20%, usually to see defects. At 20%, we can perceive certain elements, especially heavier like potassium and so on. But really when you do this, you're just opening it up because your body perceives flavors differently on different concentration. I have a very concentrated rum. I shouldn't be telling you this, but that I brought here. Probably the most concentrated you will ever taste. And I encourage you, the water, I don't know if it's hard water, but if we have a soft water, you'll see as you dilute it down, you create your own flavors. And so I just wanted to tell you this because this is really important to know. Now, you're doing this for a reason. And what she did was, imagine you work, it's hot, you're outside, you just work, you know, and you come and you're there and you're sipping, and every time it's a different flavor. That's beautiful. And of course, when you do this, you need a cognac that's heavy, you know, so not a 200 grams, you know, that's the minimum for cognac, more like 550, 600. And I created a cognac in her honor called 1840 Original Formula that has 550 esters. And so at 45% alcohol, and, you know, it holds the storm, you know, kind of thing. And I like these spirits that have a lot of elements of flavors. So I just wanted to touch on these different subjects. We're going to go back to, see, by the way, I just was looking for this. This is esters. So depending on the concentration, your body, the same elements, your body is going to perceive them differently. Do I make sense? You see what I'm saying? So that's why when you add a little water, you put an ice cube, it's okay. Well, if you have a light rum that's akin to a vodka, you know, it's not going to much, it's not bad. It's just nothing's going to happen. If you have something well structured, especially if it's a higher proof, you're going to create different flavors. All right? Just wanted to touch on this real quickly. Now we're going to go back to the order of our presentations. I always do that, don't worry. It's normal. So we're going to go back to the single cask. I wanted to touch on Barbados real quick, you know, to tell you what is the style of Barbados and how it's created. So today we're starting with the 2014. That's I'm on the right page. So this is Aaron. You see our good friend, you know, in Aaron. Aaron is, I think, a delicate, delicious whiskey from the island of Aaron. And we're going to taste this one, 2014, 48.3% alcohol. It's a pot and column. In that case, it's the Greg column. You will taste 100% Greg column later. Remember the old Greg with the rivets. And this is a column. The column is a 77 John Doe column. Tropical aging. You know, with Planteray, we aged in the Caribbean, and then we aged in cognac, double aging. And we ship the barrels at sea. You know, it's called dynamic aging. The interaction is enhanced by the movement. I'm actually writing this book of master blending. I have a paragraph about this, and I'm making research. So I bought a big barge, and I put it on the River Seine in Paris so I can finance my study. We're selling private casks, but we are going to, for 15 years, study the effect of movement on rum, because here it's 2 months, but what about 15 years? You know, where the rum is making love to the barrel, you know, every day, you know. And so that's the, and then, you know, 2 years in Ferrand cask, so cognac cask, and 1 year in Rivesaltes. You know, Rivesaltes is kind of a sweeter, southern France type of expression. So here you have an ester, it's a medium body, volatile compound, 153, esters, 87 grams. Rivesaltes, as you know, is from this region in Languedoc-Roussillon. It's this beautiful, beautiful expression of wine, and I use barrels, as you can see, you know, for here for 1 year.
This dosage means you add 8 grams of sugar per liter.
Yes, so let's talk about this. Historically, cognac, rum, is made on a sugar mill. And people made, I know this for sure, and I'll show you in the book about Navy rum, the different distilleries made their own caramel. Imagine you have a sugar mill, you make rum from sugar and from juice or from molasses, and you make your caramel. At the time, this caramel was called browning. In Europe, we call burnt sugar or dosage. Yeah. When you make your caramel by hand, in the Caribbean, people cook with browning. Jerk chicken. Well, you've seen a lot of browning on all the dish in the Caribbean. And they made their rum with it. And this is the most authentic way of using this. Sometimes we don't, sometimes we do, but it has a little residual sugar. If you think a liter is 1,000 grams, so 8 grams is 0.8%. But that's the residual. But we use this browning. We actually have a pot that used to make browning with a fire. Now I'm so nervous if we make a fire, the whole distillery will going to go on fire. So we have a steam heating system to reproduce that system. The Caribbeans taught the French people, cognac, to use this browning method, which we call dosage or we call sirupage. And now, more modern day techniques, people use caramel 150A, which is carbonized sugar. And there's a debate. Some people say which one is best. And some people say, I only do caramel 150A for the color. It's very bitter, and it's imported. We don't like 150A. We respect it as long as it's made from cane and not from sugar beet, or if it's imported from Canada, it's made usually with corn sugar. We make our own with local Barbados sugar, and we put it on the label. So that's what it is. And dosage is the French term. We should say browning, and the legal term and the historical term is called burnt sugar. In my book on Navy rum with Matt, there was a big debate. What is the proof of Navy rum? So we think it's a certain proof. I'm not going to develop. I'm not doing the book today. It's actually wrong. So of course I'm going to get killed by most people who are going to say, what is he talking about now? Because they were using burnt sugar, and burnt sugar, you know, volumic mass is different than water and alcohol. And the only way to measure alcohol in the old days with the hydrometer, that was calculating the difference of the two. So since they were using elements that were different than water and alcohol, it created a distortion. That's called obscuration. Now I'm like, by the time I explain this, and people are going to start believing me, it's going to take a long time. Luckily, we discovered a document from 90 years ago that British Navy say, oops, actually, the rum the sailors were drinking were 1 degree higher in alcohol, 1% higher and more in alcohol than what was on the label because of the burnt sugar. So it's technical, but it's kind of fun. When my wife reads the book, she thinks she falls asleep. You know, she thinks it's too technical. Maybe you agree. She says it's the best way to sleep without a pill, you know. But to me, it's very exciting. That's all what it is, you know. We've been married 35 years. So
It's not published yet, is it?
in July, we will do a first release at Tales of Cocktails, and then it will be black and white, and then we'll issue the book in you know, a final term with colors, you know, at the end of last year. And we studied that and said, okay, what is the real proof, you know? And then, you know, luckily the British Navy wrote everything because alcohol was money. So anyway, just wanted to touch on this very important aspect, obviously, you know, historical aspect of. So you guys tried it? You like it? Ah, so you had a cylinder. You like cylinder? You see what I'm trying to do with the, you know, Barbados and, you know, Fiji that's there in the background. And you know, now you know, when you taste cylinder, you have also a little bit of black olive in the background that comes from cane juice distillates. Now that I tell you this, every time you're going to taste cane juice distillate, you always find little black olive. It's way in the background. That's how you recognize usually. So that's cylinder.
But right now we're talking about the...
And now we're talking about Barbados 2000. Yeah, the cylinder was that baby. I'm sorry. Up, voila. Right there. I missed it. Well, and so we did cylinder. We talked about it at length. Remember the 3 different ones, the 3 different blends. And then, on a un peu du mal avec cette présentation. Voilà. Okay, but let's talk. So cylinder is the first one we talked about. Remember the blend of Barbados, Fiji, and Mauritius. Now we're going to talk about the. We're going to talk about. You know. The vintage Barbados, the first vintage Barbados is this one in the iron barrel. You can see cylinder is a little sweeter, is a little softer. The second one is a little stronger. Yeah. Bonsoir, monsieur.
Totally different question about cognac. I mean, you are the BNIC now in charge.
Yeah, not anymore. I was 3 years. It's a democracy. We changed.
How did they work with your renegade stuff?
I was voted because of that. The smaller companies, the more specialist company, I was not a candidate. They voted for me. And one day they said, I'm elected. And I said, and I thought during the night, and I said yes, because I can advance the cause. Some of the big guys, you know. So,
How is it nowadays?
It's-
What do you think? What do the BNIC think of these older barrels?
it's agreeing to reopen and to study.
Très bien.
In the end, it works. If you're serious in what you do.
I'm absolutely happy with what you've done.
Yeah, thank you.
I bought a few bottles.
I never give up. Unless somebody proves me wrong. If I'm proven wrong, I'm okay. I'm always willing to learn. But on this is heritage.
And by the way, you're very well.
Sorry?
Tu vas bien, Alexandre?
Ça va bien. Sorry, guys.
Just one question, because on the paper is written that.
Sorry, Ron. I'm just gonna jump back. Sorry, go ahead.
So on the paper is written that the Barbados 2014 is in French Muscat cask finish, and here.
No, the.
Riverside.
I know. So I'm gonna. What is here is what it is. What you have on the sheet. You know, I didn't do the sheets here, but what you have on this sheet is what it is.
And the
Right.
size is.
And then the second one you have here, right here. So I'm sorry. Voila. So the first one you have. So this is the 2010. This is in the order. I don't have the mat. So do you have the mat? Yeah. So in the mat, explain what. I don't have the mat here. I have the presentation here.
The first one in the map is the Barbados 2014 French Muscat Riverside.
Voila. So it's this one.
The second one is the one you just got now. It was the Aran. We just serve it now. That's the second one.
Voila.
And the cylinder, the second one that you have is supposed to be the fifth one. Okay. Sorry. It's a bit
So now you have that. So that one is the second one.
exactly. That one
Voila.
is the second one.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm punished. I cannot drink.
And Muscat is the grape, and Riverside is the region.
Yeah. Exactly. And
What we have now is this one.
Exactly.
yeah, what you have now is 10 years old. So when it's 10 and older. When it's a vintage, it's just that year, right? And alcohol. What?
Where was it distilled?
So this is West Indies Rum Distillery as well.
But you didn't own West Indies 10 years ago.
No, I didn't. I bought it 8 years ago. I've been working with West Indies Rum Distillery for more than 25 years. They were my main supplier.
I wasn't there. You remember?
Sorry?
I was there.
Yeah? Yeah. No, it's a great distillery, and I was my dream, by the way, my dream come true, to be able to be part of that distillery. You know, at that distillery, there's a room like the corner of this room. If you've been there, you've seen it. It's called the Distiller's Vault. And George States, the guy I told you about, was a genius, and George States collected all these documents about the recipes, about the equipment, about everything. So we know about rum making since 1893, and everything is written down, all the shapes of the stills and so on. So very, very organized guy, and thank God that tradition was kept alive. So for me, imagine being part of this. My grandfather was a father to me, says you never own a vineyard, you tend a vineyard. You never own a distillery, you tend a distillery. The proof of this German guy who started this, now is somewhere with the angels. Now there's a French guy, and then it's going to be Barbados. It's okay. It's for us to do good and to do beautiful rums. So you see the two products here. Here, obviously, the first, the Riverside gives you a nice, sweet, fruit-forward notes. Barbados has nice level esters, so that reinforce that aspect. Here you have a whiskey barrel. It's a soft whiskey barrel. See, this one has 0 dosage. It's a lighter rum, as you can see, about 199 grams of volatile substances. And so it's maybe a drier feel and a bit of a lighter attack, on the palate. You see how they behave differently. So that means the way it's been distilled, it's been fermented a slightly shorter time. Remember, you create flavors during fermentation. And then obviously when you distill, if you distill a column, you put a little more column and it makes it lighter. Because you create weight usually with a pot still. You can get a lot of flavors, using a pot still. All right, so this one, 1 year in Barbados, 4 years in Ferrand, and actually 5 years in a Scotch whiskey barrel. We didn't want too much of the sweet flavor of the bourbon barrel. Now, sometimes I hear it ages faster in the Caribbeans and slower in Europe. I wish it was true, because it's legal to age cognac in Barbados. So I would send all my cognac there, which I did, by the way. I sent some cognac there, and it's wonderful. But it's just, there's no magic. I never met any technique to age faster. Many people, usually charlatans, sell you a trick to age faster. You do this, your spirit will age faster. And then you look at it. So some people, they put wood chips and a cooker pressure, you know, like put under pressure, so you chase the tannins in the rum.
Ultrasonic sound.
Or yeah. Right? It is not faster age, it's just more flavors of wood. That's different. That's not age. Aging is these long molecules that create with time. I never saw anybody, and I'm open-minded. I love to be proven wrong, right? Because I spend so much money aging so much rum. I would love to be wrong, but I never found any system that has made a rum age faster. Let me explain. The Caribbean says, oh yeah, we age faster. They're right. Some aspect, they have a higher evaporation. So in cognac, we have 3% evaporation. In Barbados, I have 8% evaporation. So you could say it's faster. The evaporation is faster. And actually with heat, you have some molecules get, it does things that are faster. However, since you don't have differences of temperature, in Europe, we have cold and hot and cold. So the rum expands in the wood, retracts in the wood, expands in the wood. So the wood digestion, if you will, is greater. So there's no good or bad. There's no faster and slower. There is difference. There is different ways. And that's why in the old days, West Indies Rum Distillery used to have their own warehouse in Liverpool and their warehouse in Barbados and say, okay, this one we're going to put it here, this one we're going to put it there. That's called double aging. And we have a brand called States here where we do just tropical aging. There's no one that's good and one that's bad. It's just a different tool. It's like saying, do you like Burgundy or do you like Bordeaux? I'm like, I like good wine, and if it's from Burgundy or Bordeaux, it's okay too. And that's the way. In techniques, there's no good ways and bad ways. There is mastery. If you master his technique, then of course it's delicious. Just wanted to touch on this. So which one you prefer, by the way? Which one prefer the Rivesaltes? First one was Rivesaltes. Cylinder, a lot of body, a lot of flesh. Thank you. I love that. That's my baby. So now we're going to jump. We're going to go to Fiji. Voila. So Fiji Island, this one is 100% from the little column, the skeleton column. So it's a medium body Fiji rum. 52% alcohol, so it's barrel proof. Column distillation, 7 years in Fiji, 4 years in a cognac barrel, 1 year in a Marsala wine cask. What I love, guys, what I love about rum is when you taste one rum, it's here, and you taste another rum, it's there, and you think the other one is going to be somewhere in the middle. It's not. It's a total different rum. So Fiji here is a medium body for Fiji, for sure. It's a great percentage of esters in terms of percentage, almost half, And like I said, quite a long aging in Fiji. And then the last year in the Marsala barrel that I thought worked beautifully. Some of you may be familiar with Marsala. It's a 45 one, from Sicily. So it's got sweet, nice dried fruit forward notes that work so well with Fiji. I'm not trying to make it taste like wine. I'm trying to underline the very, very characteristic of the Fiji rum. Now, these are foolproof rum, right? They're barrel-proof rum. You know, so of course they deliver a lot of flavors.
At what ABV do you fill the barrels?
Now it's a question that it depends.
Okay, let's say in this case.
This one is barrel proof, was a little higher, and this year's. It brought down a little bit. This one was put in a barrel at 57, 58. You know, there was a question here. It's barrel proofing, it's called. You know, master blenders, some people say, I put spirit in a barrel at 65%. Why? Why? It depends what you want to extract from the wood. Some element of the woods are more soluble to water, like tannins, and some element of the woods are more soluble, like vanillin, you know, it smells like vanilla, or sometimes coconuts, more soluble to alcohol. So depending what you want to extract, you put in the barrel at different proof. That's why it takes 20 years in cognac to figure this out, right? And so some people just barrel at the same proof. In cognac we do, and sometimes you do a higher proof at the beginning, then you proof down, and you put in the barrel to extract more elements because you want to extract more tannins, for example. So that's why for us here, this is natural proof. Every spirit maker proof down out of their still, because usually it's 70% to 80% out of still. But then it depends what you want to extract, either 40, 45, 60, depending what you want to do. In that case, this is a natural proof from the barrel, obviously, once it's been aged all this time. If you age in a humid cellar, the proof goes down. If you age in a dry cellar, the proof goes up. Like in Peru, sometimes, because Peru, where Cartavio Distillery is, it's so dry. The roof, first time I go to Peru, I'm with the guys, you know, I've never been to this distillery. And I'm inside, and I see all the rays of sun going through the roof. And you know, when you're technical guys, you say, man, you're going to need a new roof. And he looks at me and says, why? I say, why? Because I see the sun going through, there's holes everywhere. I say, oh, we never have rain. It's just for the sun, you know, because over there it's in the desert. But because the Andes brings so much water in the ground, the cane is the feet in the water and the head in the sun. And cane loves that. So they have 2 crops every year because of that. So, because I always think tropical climate, a lot of water, you know, and stuff like this. So obviously a bone dry cellar. And their cellar was so dry that they had, rum was becoming a little harder. So they create a compressor system, you know, to put the mist, cost them $600,000 to put like some to humidify the air because it was so dry. I like it when it's like this because to me that's the local signature. But they thought it went overboard, you know, it went overboard. So of course the environment is going to either, you know, have certain elements. And in that case, obviously tropical climate, you have high humidity. At West Indies Rum Distillery, the aging cellar is on the sea almost. It's 10 meters from the sea. So obviously you have very, very high humidity. So different, right? Total different than Barbados. Now we're going to taste something more different, which is Belize. So Belize, this is Mario Perdomo. His son was my master, you know, one of my 4 masters. You know, Rommel. It's still family owned. It's in San Pedro. It's called Travelers. Belize used to be a customer to West Indies Rum Distillery in the 1930s, and they bought their own distillery. And this is a rum at a lower proof in that case. You know, 44% alcohol. And then I had tasted a cherry liqueur that I really liked. The barrel maker, it's an Italian one. I don't remember the brand. I bought it from a barrel maker. The barrel. I didn't buy it from the maker. And I thought it was really nice. And I thought it worked so beautifully with the Belize. I thought it worked very well with the medium body, nice ester level, you know, and again, I didn't want to make it at a higher proof, but to showcase it at a proof level that showed very specific flavor. So that's the that's.
Thinking about walnut when I smell this, not cherry.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you shouldn't taste cherry.
There's cherry, of course.
Yeah, but you shouldn't.
Think of Moncherie.
Yeah, but
Well,
you
the chocolate maybe.
yeah.
It is hardcore moncherie.
But think about it. When you are using a barrel, it's not to sell the barrel, it's to showcase the rum, right? So if the barrel takes over, if the sherry takes over, then I made a mistake.
Are you speaking of cherry, not sherry?
Yeah, no, sherry, like a cherry, the fruit, not sherry, the cherry. And so,
You bought it from Italy.
yeah, this is Italian cherry. I don't know the guy. I bought it through a barrel maker,
Yeah.
and I really liked it. I thought it was really nice.
Do you know the Ferrero company?
Yeah.
There's something which is called moncherie.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. But this is about the rum, and it should really be about the rum. This is Fiji, and to me that's so important. And when you use a barrel, it is about the rum. It shouldn't be like the 60% about the and then. So what do you taste? I have molasses, from the raw material, sweet elements of the rum. You have a medium body. You have a lot of exotic fruits that are there, and the exotic fruit with the cherry is enhanced. That dried fruit elements of the rum itself is brought forward with the cherry, and I thought that was interesting. In that case, a lot of there's a little dosage. Remember we talked about this. That gives a caramelly aspect that I thought worked well with the rum. Different expression.
What are you using for dosage? It's just sugar cane or?
Of course, it is called brown sugar, raw sugar. It's called plantation grade. So it's unrefined sugar that's got a little molasses. That's toasted, heated to make burnt sugar. And with Belize, we use Belize sugar. There's a sugar maker over there. And in Barbados, we use raw sugar from Barbados.
And it's all sugar cane based.
Of course. But that's a great point. Because when people use 150A, sometimes it's made with corn or sometimes it's made with sugar beet.
Technically, you're allowed to use whatever you want.
You are, but I am pushing that any sugar or caramel that is not made with cane should be forbidden for rum. Because for rum is a cane product.
I agree.
And if you use anything that's corn,
Maize, corn, yeah.
corn is good for whiskey,
No, it's not.
And I like it. You should taste the corn whiskey from Boston made by Mr. Nelly, right off the still, when it's fresh before the wood falls on it. It's just incredibly delicious. It's like having your nose in when corn is warm. It's just delicious. You should taste the corn whiskey from the guy at Iron Roots. They use butcher corn, the red corn. It's delicious. And that's why I get the barrels from these guys, because it's really expressive. And in fact, I made a bet. I use some of their corn. I'm not going to sell it. It's just for me to show that if I age it with not so much wood, it can be so beautiful. So the corn is still there in your face. And then, to me, the barrel should be the decoration. It shouldn't be the tree, and that's my take. Now, some guys, there's Richard Patterson from Al Jura and, sorry?
Dalmore.
Dalmore. And he's very, very talented. And for him, the wood is over 50%. So we totally disagree. I mean, I don't agree with him, but he makes a good product. He's very talented. So it's just, you can disagree and respect. In that case, for me, it's about the rum. It's about the cognac. Remember, I grew up in the cognac, in the wine regions, Burgundy, the wood never takes over, and that I think is very important.
I do have a question. Continental aging 1 year in Ferrand casks. So Ferrand cask then is French oak?
Yeah, Ferrand cask, it's French. In that case, it's Limousin oak. Yeah, white grain French oak.
And used before for cognac or
Yes,
fresh?
yes, used before for cognac. Again, if you use a fresh barrel, it's going to be really in your face.
Yeah.
And
Curious about it.
bourbon barrel, we use first or second fill. And when we use first fill bourbon barrels, we do it for 1 or 2 years, then we put back rum. I don't want, again, the wood to take over. Very often, the new style of some rums, you got the bourbon flavor, like a lot of vanillin, and these are barrel juice. And again, I respect it, I just don't like it. No.
There's
the reason Planterray puts all the rums into a Ferrand cask first, so you always have that kind of triple maturation.
Yeah, it's true. But for us, let me tell you, American oak has two main dominant elements. It's called Quercus alba. It's white oak. One is vanillin, tastes like vanilla. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's a lot of vanillin. And coconuts, whiskey lactone.
Yeah, but this comes much later.
Oh, no, it depends at what proof you barrel. And if you barrel at a higher proof, you get a lot of it. So it depends. And French oak has a lot of spice and tannins, and some more spicy type of vanilla. So, you know, in cognac, I belong to a group of master blenders, and we've been meeting, not me, but the guys before, for 200 years in the same restaurant. And we meet every Wednesday. I'm 57, I'm the youngest guy. The older guy is 94 years old. And these guys know their job. And sometimes we talk nonsense, but most of the time we have one topic. One day we had a topic about barrels, French oak or American oak. So of course everybody's French around the table and say which one is the best. So big debate, and everybody's technical. And you know, I've worked a lot with American oak because of rum, but also American oak is legal for cognac.
But you are the bad guy amongst this group.
Not necessarily, thank you.
As far as I know, sorry.
Yeah, no, but
Among French, everyone is the bad.
but you're right, because I like to push the limits, but we have a lot of respect for one another. And you have Alexandre Gabriel is a friend of mine who makes, you have American oak, he's cognac in American oak. So everybody's arguing, and these guys are traditional French guys, and they say, yes, American oak is good, but French oak is so much better. You know, it's a whole bunch of French guys, and right, French oak is delicious. I say, well, again, is it better or is it different? Yeah, this one is actually a French cognac in American oak. From Hervé, is a good friend of mine who makes this very good cognac. And so, thank you.
Must be good because the bottle is nearly empty.
And so,
Trying to get rid of it.
you know, it's a good one. And what I'm trying to say is, I said, but why do you have to say one is better than the other? Because it depends on the moment. Is salt better than pepper? You tell me. I like salt and I like pepper. So when I said that, they're like, but of course his wife is American. We are good friends, so they were kidding me. But no, they knew we were right and we agreed, you know. So remember what you just said. So, you know, if you get the first aging in American oak, not too much, but you get that, you know, younger, you get a lot of vanillin, a little whiskey lactone, you know, in the, I use it in the, you know, the cylinder, there's that, but the cylinder is very technical. I use wood that is not oak, for example. That's why it's got this very complex, exotic taste. And so after that, remember what you said? French oak. So after all these different elements of sweetness that's brought with American oak, then we get the elements of spice, depth, structure. And by the way, that's why wine producers all over the world, even in America, don't use so much American oak, because American oak, if you add vanillin, whiskey lactone, coconuts to a wine, it's a bit strange. So that's why the biggest customers for French oak producers, barrels, are actually wine from all over the world. And so it works for certain spirits and not as much for others. I will argue, I admit this is just not a professional point of view, that's my point of view, that tequila shouldn't use, that will kill me, shouldn't, I'm being filmed, should never use, or not use too much, American oak. Because tequila is about that grassiness, it's about this agave and so on. And my best tequilas, I love the Alteña and all these guys, they use exhausted barrels, and I'm arguing they should be using clay pots. Because you got the oxygenation without the flavoring of the wood, right? One day when there's no more trees, we all use clay pot anyway, but that's when we are all dead. But you know, I'm researching clay pot aging. And so really that's every spirit and what you're trying to do. And your point is very important because this type of oaks bring different flavors, you know. And so depending, salt and pepper, depending what you're trying to do. And with Planterray, we get to choose from these two woods, but also two climates for aging. That's the tropical aging. Now, that's the double aging. This is tropical aging. We have a brand called States. Remember, George States is the gentleman who started the distillery. And we decided with the team in Barbados, says, okay, we are the expert of double aging with Planterray. Why not do like a tropical aging line, which is States, you know? And because again, which one is better is just two different expressions. So we're going to try Jaws, which is a very specific expression, a little after that. I just wanted to do a little parenthesis in this. As you know, I've created Plantation Rum in 1999 at a time that I didn't know I was going to create a rum brand. I was selling my cognac barrels to rum producers, mostly in Haiti, to Barbados. God bless Haiti, by the way. It's rough right now. It's a beautiful country. And Thierry Garder was one of my mentors. And that was my first experience to technical rum. And when I saw the technicality of fermentation in the Caribbean, I was being trained in cognac. I was like, this is amazing. I want to know everything about this. And so I started studying, and he opened the doors, him and a guy from St. Lucia called Laurie Barnard. They opened the doors to the Caribbean for me. And I opened the doors of cognac. Cognac's quite, specific, and to them. And I sold my barrels, but I liked the rum so much, I said, why don't you give me rum instead of money? So when I started aging our own rum in the cognac cellar. And you know, when you are with the other master blenders, remember, we're from a small village. You know, cognac sometimes is such a beautiful small community where...
The size of Kreuzberg, basically.
Yeah, it's true. We live together. Yeah. And so sometimes everybody brings a bottle of cognac, and one day I bring a bottle of rum. These guys are like, this is not cognac. I'm like, no, you tell me what it is. They're like, this is rum, yeah? And I said, this is interesting. And the buyer of Nicolas Wine Shops, you know, one day says, I want this rum. So I didn't have a name. I grew up on a farm. In the Caribbean, a farm is a plantation. I called it Plantation. We had Plantation Reserve. There's a quality of high-grade sugar called Plantation Reserve. And then, you know, the stories in the U.S., and I got to think, and a friend of mine, he's a brew master for Brooklyn Brewery, and he's from African descent. And I said, what about this? What's happening? I'm a farmer from Cognac and Burgundy. And he said, let me tell you a story. I'm from African descent. The word plantation is strong for me, but probably you don't understand. But I'm a brewer, and I work with your good friend Dave Wondrich, and we created a new range at Brooklyn Brewery, a new range of beers. We made experience. It was a project. We were in Manhattan, and we were working on this. And his brewery got bought by a Japanese company. And every year he goes to Japan to do a presentation of his new range. And he's a very talented brewer. He wrote the Oxford Guides to beer. And they taste the beers and they think it's delicious. And he said, what are you going to call this range? They asked him. And he's American. And he worked in Manhattan about it. And he called it, we said we're going to call it the Manhattan Project.
Which is just a good name.
He's in Japan with the board. And he said, I never felt so stupid in my life. Because at first he says, what's happening? You know, you see people very frustrated. And one of the younger guys said, Manhattan Project, you think it's a good idea? It's like, no, it's descriptive about what we did. It's a project from Manhattan. And he said, you see, Alexander, the power of words. And the guy says, remember, you Americans tried to kill a lot of us. It's called Manhattan Project. And so he taught me that. And what I did at the time, we just bought West Indies Rum Distillery. And I went down and we sat down with the whole team. And everybody at West Indies Rum Distillery is from African descent. And I said to the guys, remember, I work production. This distillery, there's pipes. You always wear a helmet, you know, because you can knock your head. And so we sweat under the same helmet. We work elbow to elbow. I mean, you know the relationship I have with my team at production. So they told me stories. And they told me what it meant to them. the cemeteries we went to see, where their ancestors are there, and what has happened, and the stories from their grandmothers. And when the heart opens, a lot is going on. And then I'm like, can I work with these guys and say, never mind, it's business. It's not just the way I am. So we made that decision together. Maybe crazy, you call me crazy, but we said, I work with these guys every day. We're going to do something that we feel right about. And yes, for me in Cognac, a plantation is a place where we plant things. And yet, for Garrett Oliver, a Manhattan project is a project in Manhattan. That's what it was. But words can be very deep for certain people. And so we made that decision, and that was very hard because it's like renaming your child. You know, and so plus we don't have a legal department, so we loved the name Planterray because it's the plant, the cane, and the ray of sun. So nature and sun creates beauty, creates rum. But we had to make sure, and we had to patent it, to trademark it in 100. I didn't realize Plantation Planterray now is available in 121 countries, so we had to make sure. And of course, there's always a guide that says, yes, I'm going to agree with you. You give me 100,000. And no, sorry, the brand is not that close. And so that's how we did that change. And I hope you support us. But whether or not, this is a decision we made with the team. And when we had finally the last country that had agreed, we made the announcement in Barbados. And one of the guys from government in Barbados and one of the guy who works at the distillery, the guy at the distillery is an ex-bodybuilder. He used to be Mr. Barbados. He's got these huge hands. Now he's an old guy. And he shook my hand. Barbados is a country where you don't show your emotions too much. It's very different than, like Jamaica is very upfront, you know, and Barbados is very subdued. And so they go like, wow, you know, that's not Barbados, you know. If you get upset, they're like, are you sick? You know, like it's very stern. And he shook my hand with his big hand and he said, Alexandre, Planterray is a strong name. That was it. That was saying a lot. You know, he's not like, thank you, man, or whatever, you know. And so, you know, anyway, I just wanted to tell you because we are a family business. Everything we do is what we believe in. I have a kiddo, a son who's 27 now, who's been in the vineyards since he's a kid, in barrels, distilleries, and so on, who's learned distilling different places, you know. Took him everywhere. I don't know, it was not with Charles when I saw him. Was he here? Maybe, I forgot. But he's usually with me. And the first time he was at distillery, West Indies Rum Distillery, Andrew runs the distillery, he's a tall, slanky guy. And my son was there, and I come in, and he tries to close the door, and he cannot. And he looks at this little guy. It was my son at the young age. And so we're going to think also about the next generations and do right by them. So anyway, that was the decision we made. And I just wanted to share this with you because it's quite intimate. And it's daunting because, yes, you know, Plantation is doing really well thanks to you guys. And we've done, you know, tried to move the needle. Now it's Planterray. So that's what we've done. So thank you. Just wanted to share with you. So the Rockley, we talked about the Rockley. Jolisa, that's the lady there. And we talked about this different aspect. Now we're going to do with the little surprises.
It's referring to Barbados Rockley stills.
Yeah, the Rockley still, remember we talked about, that's the old Rockley still from 1780. That's the little bottle that you're going to have to come and collect it. It's on its way somewhere in Barbados being carried.
Yeah, but
it's coming.
referring to that.
That's referring to that.
How went this project when you tried to make the mash as seawater?
Ah, great question. We have, in the old documents, and if you talk to Digger, certain expression, especially the Rockley, used a little bit of seawater in fermentation. Not once the rum is finished, but in fermentation. The belief is, now Jamaica was also doing this, by the way. It's 1%, 1.5%. It creates a stress for yeast. And so yeast...
1.5% of seawater.
Yeah, in the wash, in the wine. And it creates a bit of a stress in the yeast, and it creates a different flavor. Now, salt, as you know, sodium is a heavy molecule, doesn't distill through, but it creates an environment for yeast to develop differently. So it's another tool to create flavor. And we're doing it sometimes, and also the spring water from West Indies Rum Distillery is slightly brackish because even though it's a well, We're right, you saw, we're on the seaside. So,
So you still do it?
yeah, of course. Yes, one of our secrets. By the way, I want to show you this fine lady quickly. This is Flovia. She's the first ever master distiller in the history of Jamaica. She was trained by Vivian Wisdom. Vivian is somebody who works with us. Wonderful, very, 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 very talented master distiller. She works at Clarendon. So that's wonderful. Yeah, Jamaica. This is us burned out now. This used to be the fermenting house for Long Pond, and it was destroyed by fire in 2017. We rebuilt it identically with the same varieties of wood, tropical cedar that we had to fetch in Mexico with Mexican vat makers. Why do we use wood? Because the yeast lives in the wood and creates, like, if there's somebody making bread, you get these specific flavors.
But only in Jamaica.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, of course we know.
So we'll talk about that later. And now we're going to talk about jaws. On a des trucs sur
Do you
jaws.
think that there is yeast living in the
Jaws is not the same than this. So we have no
So now, before we do jaws, this is a surprise from you. And he said, I have this bottle from West Indies Rum Distillery. Can you tell me what it is? And I know that I am sure, it is the, remember the old Greg, the one with the long neck and the double skin? The still that was built in 1850. It's what we call the Greg Classic. There is two Gregs. There's a Greg Classic and Greg Heavy. Greg Classic is 3 to 4 days fermentation. The Greg Heavy is like 1 week to 2 week fermentation. And that was distilled. It's a nice present, by the way. Thank you, man. And then distilled in 2000. So very collectible, very delicious, elegant Barbados style. It's bottled at 56% alcohol. Was bottled by a bottler, King Gildive. I can smell. It's really interesting. You got the very balanced, very elegant style of pot still rum from Barbados, and it's a single pot still. So that's this one that was sold by the distillery to this bottler. So thank you. It's a nice surprise. He's incredible. He felt bad. He said, the Rockley is not here, but I got something. And so, we tasted that, and that's wonderful. So, yeah, it's a nice surprise, and thank you very much. And I wouldn't mind having a little glass of that one.
Yes, sure.
The other ones, I made them, but this one, 2000, I was not there. So, you see, this is a still that we're using for jaws. This is a still we had in the archives that was designed in the 1800s. And I like the shape, and it's very Barbadian style. And I collect old still. And I had the body of a still here, the bottom part, was from Cognac. At the time, they built it similarly, as you can see. So I asked my good friend Gaylor, I said, I'm going to draw this. Can you make it for me? So you don't see my drawing, but it's all measured. And he created that for me. We called it and then my drawings are always corrected by the old gentleman from John Doerr. He's a genius engineer for pot stills called, David Pym. David Pym is the guy who made the pot still in so many rum countries. Fiji, that's David Pym. Cartavio, the little still is David Pym. Long Pond, that's him. The Colin of West Indies, that's him. Etc., St. Lucia, and so on. So Fiji, and so on. So he corrects my drawing, and then we made that to create the jaws that we will taste later. Why we needed a new still? Because what happens with time, they wear out. Now you're probably thinking, so what about the Rockley? The Rockley was molded in sand. When you buy a new still, now you buy an iPhone or a phone, a year later, there's no more batteries, and you go and they change the battery, but it doesn't work the same way. They want you to buy a new phone. Now, the pot still makers are the same way. They make a still thin, 3 millimeters, so 20 years later, you need to buy a new still. The Rockley, when we tested it, the top is still 9 millimeters, built in 1780, 9 millimeters. So probably another 100 years. So I think all of us will be drinking with the angels. It will still be making rum. So, so that's why we're going to be able to use it. So we needed a still to create, and if you do high esters, you create acidification. If you're interested, I'll explain. And then, so of course you need, to have, and that was built long time ago, as you can see from the rivets, so that's very thick. So, and we had to produce a door from bronze, so you don't have to take the head out to clean it and get all made that for me. It's all handmade, as you can see. And then we have that still that we call the John Doerr 88 or the hot pot. So why we do that is to be able to continue, building, making these heavier rums without wearing out all our old stills.
So like the bottlings where it's written down Rockley still and Black Rock, it's actually not Rockley still, Black Rock. It's not the Black Rock still, is it?
Alors, Black Rock is the village where we are.
Yeah.
So it's all from Black Rock, right? It's a great question. The Rockley still is not from the Rockley because the Rockley stopped distilling 50 years ago. So it's a Rockley style where they used a little bit of seawater, remember his question, but it was distilled in the old Greg. I don't know why it was called Rockley. We didn't invoice it as Rockley for sure because the Rockley stopped distilling. But it was so mystical at the time, was so reputable. Some people started labeling Rockley style because the fermentation was a Rockley style, but the distilling was occurring in the, it's a great question, in the old Greg. And the old Greg was built in 1850, which is great still as well. This is an old Greg classics, a little lighter, which I think is quite elegant. And you can see the wood is not taking over. It's got a nice floral, elegant note, probably on the lighter style. And so that's the story of the Rockley. The last time, if it's over 50 years ago, it is probably from the Rockley.
But why do you always find like vintage 2085?
86, probably because that's a time at which one or two rum traders bought a bunch of stocks. There is few guys like Cheers and so on, they buy, a bunch from us and they keep it, and that's probably what was left, and then bottlers buy from these guys. There's also a great bottler, help me, the British guy. John. John. Yeah, Bristol.
I think he was the first.
Yeah, he was the first, and John is really nice, and he wants the Rockley again. And John was visiting us recently, and he's very serious in what he does. And I think they meant Rockley style, but he's somebody who really truly buys.
John was the first.
Yeah.
First bringing rum forward.
Yeah.
20 years ago, before you ever started to invest.
Yeah.
In rum.
I don't know, but yeah.
John was,
yeah. And John is wonderful, and his son now is there, and we work with John's son-in-law. We work with John. I still work with John, but the idea for him is interested to say, okay, the Rockley would be great now that it's making rum again. And remember, we have Digger, and there's also, if you're interested in mystical stills, we call it pot still alley. You should come and visit us. We have a chamber still. I don't know if you're familiar with what is a chamber still. Oh, thank you. So you saw the Vulcan.
Yeah.
Thank you. When you went, the Rockley was in the parking lot, or
It was in the parking lot, yeah.
Yeah. So now you got to come back and see it. Now it's singing rum, and it's singing beautiful rum. And so the Vulcan, it's like a retort, but it's vertical, and you saw it, right? It's a technology from America. I remember during Prohibition, all these stills were cheap to buy, at the time, and that's when West Indies went on the buying spree, to have more stuff. So that's the. So we wanted, Jaws is a rum mark. So we have at West Indies the single marks and what are pot still marks. What I want to do, and the team, you will see, don't be surprised, with States, we're going to do very limited editions of single stills. Rockley Light, Rockley Heavy, Rockley Classic, Rockley Heavy, the Vulcan, the one we talked about, the Old Greg, and then the Hot Pot. It's a delicious little still. And if you're interested, I don't know if you saw, there's a club called the Plantation Addicts, now Planterray. There's 3 stills that I have in my documents, and I can only afford one. One is a wooden one with green heart. One is a little skeleton that George States, German guy, built that still. One is the other still next in the garden. Actually, there's a 4th one, but there's 3 that I really would like to build. And I have money just for one. So I've decided that anybody interested would vote which one we're going to build. Because my guys can build anything from the old days. And this is history. So thanks again for this delicious rum. Now you poured the Jaws. So Jaws, tu as mis la fiche technique? I just want to explain how you create a lot of esters and flavors in the Caribbean. You grow your own yeast. In Jamaica, it's called the rum. It's called the mud pit, and in Barbados, it's called the nursery. You see the nursery with Dario, Terry. Here, where you grow your own yeast. Somebody asked a question earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't bounce on it. You use wood because the yeast live in the wood, right? And yes, it does. I'm sorry, I make it every day.
Do you clean it sometimes?
Yeah, no, you don't clean. No, I'm sorry. I really make it every day. I really know how it works, I promise you. And then you use that, and if you clean it, you kill your yeast. You're not doing this. That would be a stupid thing to do. And unless you don't like the yeast strain that's being used. Now, if you're thinking rhum agricole with wooden vats, you have to clean it all the time. That's why they use stainless steel. But if you use molasses, where you distill all the time, you cultivate your yeast in your vats.
What are you using in cognac?
Well, cognac is a seasonal yeast. Think about your question. Think hard about your question. Cognac is distilled when?
Between October, November, and March.
All right? So now you know the answer. Elaborate on what you said.
But still is a long time. But
No. Elaborate on what you said. What happens with the rest of the year?
It's closed. It's not used.
It's not closed. It's empty.
Yeah, it's empty. It's not used.
So it's rotting.
Yeah, of course.
So you got to do what?
You clean it with what's the English name? No.
So what you do, you clean it, you take your yeast out, right? Now when you do molasses rum, his point is important, you distill all year long.
Yeah, but they do it in whiskey as well, and they still clean it in between. With,
Whiskey and rum is two different spirits.
Yeah, but in fermentation, it's the same stuff.
Yeah, let me tell you why. Because whiskey up till now used a lot of what is called a commercial yeast. So they want to be on a specific yeast that's their yeast that they buy.
Yes.
Commercial yeast, the white bag. Now here, you're not in whiskey, you're in the Caribbean. And in the Caribbean, you cultivate, if you're Jamaica and Barbados, you cultivate your own yeast.
Yeah, but it's still the same yeast every batch, because you want to have the same output.
Wait, you mean in whiskey or in your own yeast?
In rum.
No, again, because when you use an open vat, you don't have the same yeast every time, but yet what you have cultivating
but they add yeast, it's not natural yeast, it's not natural fermentation.
Sorry?
They add yeast.
Who is they?
Well, use somebody in Jamaica, whatever.
Okay.
Very nephews.
Very nephews.
Yeah.
They add yeast, I suppose.
I know, what you suppose. Let me tell you how it works, right? So you have few ways to do this. You have closed tank fermentation.
Yeah.
You want to control your yeast, and they're made of stainless steel vat. You don't want the outside yeast. You want to control your yeast. So you have two ways to do this. Either you buy commercial yeast, and then you have that yeast strain that's going to make that flavor for you. Usually people do this for high yield, so you can make about 2,290 liter of pure alcohol per ton. Or you want a specific flavor. You don't buy the yeast in that case, you grow your own yeast, right?
But you use all this same yeast. It's grown by your own, but you use the same yeast every batch.
No, not necessarily, depending on the flavor you're looking for.
Yeah.
Remember, every yeast is going to define a special, you have Saccharomyces cerevisiae yeast, you have Schizosaccharomyces yeast, you have sequential fermentation, you use different yeast. So if you have a closed vat, you want to control your environment. So either you buy the yeast and commercial yeast, these guys sell you a flavor. At the alcohol school I was 3 weeks ago, we tried different yeast, we even tried GMO yeast. I asked to be tasted blind and to discover which one is what, and I identified it was very different. So closed vat, you control your yeast environment, either with commercial yeast or your own grown yeast. Now, open vat, you get the yeast from your own environment, your distillery and so on. But yet you can still grow some yeast, because some yeast, if you want to I'll tell you technically, some yeast is very robust, some yeast is very weak. So for example, if you do different yeast, in cognac I use that now, you put a yeast at first that's a little weak but delicious, so you do a little bit closer then, you put it, you let it work, and after you put another strain of yeast, that kills the first one, but the first one has already created some flavors. All this I've learned in the Caribbean. That's why I'm saying whiskey, rum, totally different. Now, whiskey is borrowing from whiskey right now. Again, whiskey is borrowing from rum about fermentation. At the alcohol school, we had guys from whiskey, Japanese, Chinese, and Scotland, because they're like, how do you do esters? How do you do your acidification? How do you do this and that? So you're gonna hear, mark my words, more and more reference to yeast in whiskey world. You want to see more and more. They start already. Before was the white bag. You go in the distillery and you see that, and now they are learning more and more and doing a great job at it. So that's why you have different ways. And when you use a wooden vat and you use molasses, you have your yeast because you create an ongoing culture. And let me tell you how we know this. Long Pond Distillery. You've seen the yeast room. Well, the fermenting room was there since the late 1800s. And it burned down. And it was not clean. It was used all the time. So what happens? You use a lot of the elements. Thank God they had something we call the muck pit, where they create some bacteria and yeast. But you need like a couple of years to reseed every vat for fermenting. Remember I showed you the picture of the old room? So that's why this is something super important, and that's why you use wooden vat, and that's why when you use open, you get the yeast from the outside. Just wanted to do that, and that's really important. And it took 2 years of our work. If what you say was true and you clean it and it start all over again, I would have saved 2 years in our life. But no, you have to take the time and reseed it so it develops again. But every spirit works differently, and if you look for yield, you cannot work like this. But if you look for flavors, you have to work like that. Now, I want to share a little secrets with you too. This is where you see the yeast is being developed here. And let me do that. So that's the nursery, right? And so obviously these are the guys who worked on this. Jaws, that's their last name. Vivian Wisdom, you probably know. And this is the project Confrérie du Rhum. This is the guys who came, and they really want us to bottle Jaws. Jaws is usually a blending element. Volatile substances, remember the weight. So cognac is minimum of 200 grams. This is 988. Ester level 247. This is a barrel proof at 56. It's only aged 6 months. It was, and the yeast was from the yeast nursery. So it's a big rum, obviously. It's huge because it's 1,000 grams of volatile substances. But I wanted to show you, and I'm going to show you something even more concentrated. So if you think that's hard, wait until the next one, it's going to be. But what you need to do on this one is to just do a little sip in your palate and let it open up and let it develop. If it's a little too strong for you, and if the water is not too hard, you can put a little water. It's hard. Okay, so use your saliva, put it on your palate, and it'll open up. So that's Jaws, very specific edition of rum from Barbados. Yes?
So why the name Jaws and not a shark on the label?
The guys who made the rum, this specific one is Dario Jordan, Terry Allen, Vivian Wisdom, and Mika. So they're not sharks. But it's funny you say this, because we have a team of guys, a sports team at the distillery, and when they go running and they do exercise, they have a big shark on the label because they know they're the Jaws team.
Yeah, when I think of Jaws, I think of something that bites.
Yeah.
Has a strong alcohol, so that fits. I thought you need a great white shark on the label.
Yeah. So obviously, only one barrel. Just wanted to show you.
So it's not for sale yet?
Well, the only store that's available, I think it's here, right? You're going to have some of the Jaws here, or you're going to sell some Jaws? Well, you're the only store who sells Jaws. What, in Germany?
Price? I don't know yet.
But you're producing it.
What?
You're producing it.
Yeah.
It's your product.
Yeah, we produce. We made, you know, I'm aging it. I'm using a lot for blending. This is a beautiful blending element, right? A lot of flavors. And these guys loved it so much. And I said, you know, it's such a holistic rum that bottled would be a lot of fun, would be delicious. So it's a very specific mark. And I don't know how many bottles you get, but...
Between 30 and 36.
Wow. So I will do a mushroom.
So it will be a limited edition and finished, or is it the first release and we can hope for more?
I think we can hope for more. I make it every year, a small batch,
Yeah.
and usually I use it as a blending element. I think it's incredible. And if you guys like it, maybe we do a series number 2 or series number 3.
Because it's a blueberry cheese.
Thank you. I agree. You have a good nose. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I mean, you are one of the outstanding guys in the rum industry.
I don't know about that, but okay.
Well, you are. You know about that.
No.
Of course.
Okay. I don't.
What's your opinion on, let's say, Renegade Rum from Grenada? This
Marc Renier.
Marc Renier with
Yeah.
this terroir stuff. What's your opinion on
I
that?
think it's great. You know, the beauty of rum is diversity, and it's people who do things honestly. And I think he's very honest with what he does. He's invested quite a lot of money. I know the project very well. I know his partners very well. And he studied his idea is to focus on terroir, the land. I think it's one of the elements of flavors, and he's studying that. To me, I would go further and look what kind of yeast is in that piece of land. You know, and I think it's the next step probably he's going to go through, because imagine if you say this is top of the hill and the bottom of the hill, unless you pasteurize your juice, which you shouldn't, and if you look at the mark, I promise you the yeast up there and down there is totally different. So that's another level of taste. You see, marketing is always one thing. Reality is not one thing, it's 1,000 things. Yeah. That's why we make long presentations, because if I be a marketing guy, I'd tell you one thing and knock it on your head. But you know, it's complicated. So what he's doing is saying, okay, I'm going to look at this. I could tell you, and you need to come back to Barbados, sir, and some of you, you'll see. Again, some people say, I prefer molasses rum, or I prefer cane juice rum. And by the way, there's also syrup, and there's also
Sugar in Florida.
sugar, different, yeah. But there is also, yeah, it's true. And there's also what we call skimmings, you know, in Paraguay. Skimming is very 19th century. You boil down the juice and creates foam, and you distill from that. So, so it's protein and stuff. So you cannot do this with a modern sugar mill because it's closed. But before they didn't know what to do with the skimmings. What I'm trying to say is, what about cane juice, or molasses rum?
Is this the Japanese?
Which one? What is that?
I don't know you know this product, but if we are talking about different style of rum.
Yeah.
So it's a rum from a Japanese guy.
Yeah.
Company was built in 1961, something like that. And it's a wild fermentation 3 weeks outside.
Outside.
Yes.
So.
I never had it before. It's very crazy, and it's rum.
Aber ist nicht von unserem Kumpel, oder?
Nee.
Tell me what you smell when you smell this. I'll tell you. No, it's interesting.
It's interesting.
And of course, you have a lot of ethyl elements, like vinegary element in the nose,
Yes.
because if you let ferment like that and so on, you have vinegary elements.
Funny part that when you have it 5 minutes, 10 minutes in a glass, so you get some plums and some
Cool.
piney notes. So it's very complex.
Well,
So
I'll try it
that's,
later.
Yeah.
Well done, man.
Yeah.
Here at the court.
So
Yes.
just to show
Yeah.
it's a big world.
That's why this guy is incredible. That's why this guy is incredible. But to your question.
On Marc Renier, I mean, in the whiskey world, I would say most of the things he's telling is bullshit.
Yeah.
It was last year or 2 years ago at Sturg Rum Show, I tried 4 of his 6 different white rums from Grenada.
And they were fucking different.
Yeah, of course.
And what Marc Renier says, it was just a terroir.
It's all the land.
Same type of distilling, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were different. So I'd say, I believe you in this terroir thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the whiskey world, problems.
Yeah, I will agree with you.
Oh, what cognac?
Well. So let's say first about rum. Rum, when you do cane juice rum, of course the cane juice matters, but remember what we talked about yeast. That's what kind of yeast, and it says unless you do closed tanks and you ferment, you pasteurize your juice, you cannot say it's the same rum, it's the same yeast. It's not.
It's also fermentation times.
Fermentation time as well. But even if you argue, your point is very strong, by the way, sir, but even if you argue it's the same fermentation time. But if you say, if you do, yeast is going to have a huge level of flavors. Remember, yeast are the little guys that take sugar and make, not alcohol, yes, they make alcohol, they make flavors. They make flavors. None of the flavor is there without the yeast.
Yeah.
So, yes, the raw material is very important, but the yeast is important. So it's never a simple answer. He's serious, he's investing seriously there. So I wanted to understand the effect of cane varieties. And in Barbados, I don't know if you know, you have the country, it's the country that in the 1800s, there was a guy called Bovel, the $2 bill in Barbados, who saw that cane was dying. So sugar was going to die, and rum was going to die, like the phylloxera with the grapes.
Yeah.
And he remembered the work of a guy who was a slave at the time that was freed, that was called Mr. Harper, was a genius, who said, you cannot just take the cane, cut it, put it in the ground, grow, and then again and again for hundreds of years, noble cane. Because it's like marrying your cousins for many generations. My family tried, it's not a good idea in the countryside. 2 generations only. But, more seriously, what happens if you have this DNA thing going, so he's realized you need to use daddy and mommy, different seeds. Bovel creates the sugarcane breeding station. If you go to Barbados, you have to tell me. We'll take you there. And they studied 3,000 varieties of cane, and they narrow down first stage. To study a cane is 13 years, and they narrow down second stage for 6 varieties of cane. And my first time in Barbados, I went there, was 20, 30 years ago, I told you. I had read about the sugarcane breeding station, and I go there. To me, it's like going to Jerusalem. I arrive there, and I see Dr. Kennedy. He's wearing a white blouse, and I look at his feet, and he's wearing flip-flops, on the lab and on the farm. I'm like, wow, okay. And then he's studying these varieties. And I was young, I had no money, and I'm thinking, maybe one day I get to work with this guy. Maybe one day. And then my dream is in me, but I could not even say anything he would have laughed, right? I'm like the little guy from Cognac. And then when we bought West Indies Rum Distillery, Andrew knew the story. You've seen Andrew. And he said, Alexander, I have a surprise for you. We have a partnership with the sugarcane breeding station. Full circle. We bought a cane mill, and we grind 1,000 tons of cane every year to study the different varieties. We've been doing this for 5 years, not to make sugarcane for rum, for sugar, but to make sugarcane for rum. Now, out of all the trials, there's 5 cane varieties we like at the team. We have to decide 2, and nobody agrees. So we're going to distill again and choose 2, not to make sugar, because a lot of the, and if you look, next time you look, I could show you, we have to put it on presentation, the 12 now, there's 14 varieties of Rhum Agricole. When you look blue cane is B693, 633, I believe, the last numbers. B for Barbados, 69 was produced in 1969, experience 300 and something. It comes from Barbados. Name, blue cane is a marketing name. And they produce beautiful rum with it. What I'm trying to say is out of the 12 varieties of cane that are used in Martinique by law in the AOC, 10 are from Barbados, 1 is from Reunion Island, and the other one is the noble cane, the one that's, obviously had problems. So that was a hub. So next time you go to Barbados, bring back a $2 bill. You got the guy on it that was smart enough to borrow the work of Mr. Harper. Mr. Harper was forgotten in history, but it's Andrew, who does his PhD in history rum making, who found his story. So we call the cane mill Mr. Harper in the honor of this genius. And so we're studying, to your point, we're saying, what about not only, because you talk about the land, but what about the cane variety, right?
course.
So what's the leverage of this? Because some cane variety is better on this land and that land.
And in addition, I mean, you can make variations in how you distill it.
Of course.
And
I mean, Mark says it's exactly all the same. It's the same cane variety. It's the same type of distillation, same yeast, blah blah blah. The only difference is the different areas where he's growing the sugar cane.
Look,
Wait until we get to the variation of parcellaire and where they grow the cane on this side of the.
but
mountain
that's
is
what this guy is
different.
doing. That's what this guy is doing. And you know, it's a Burgundian approach that he applied to whiskey and is now applying to rum. But again, that's the beauty of rum. Several people can be right. I believe the truth is the addition of all these elements. It's never one element. And frankly, I think I'm right, because I can tell you the truth. It's never one secret bullet. You know, it's like in life. You know, I hope there's no. In politicians, they will tell you we can fix Germany or we can fix France if we do that one thing, right? Same. We have a lot of politicians like that. But you know, the truth is to do many, many things, and maybe we cannot do them. A combination. So it's the same with making rum. I'm not a politician, but I do believe it's a combination of many things. So anyway, that's Jaws. You know, here, but it's a great question, and these questions, and so now we're going to choose 2 cane varieties, and we're going to plant 30 acres in, you know, at Kendall of these cane varieties, and
Barbados.
yeah, in Barbados, and
Barbados is now at the moment is your main investment thing.
yeah, Barbados and Jamaica, yeah, and in Jamaica we cultivate 400 hectares of cane as well. So and then we'll plant coconuts, as you know, when we cut and dry, and so we are planting more coconuts. So. Just wanted to have you taste, and before we finish, if you think Jaws, that's my house. Jaws, this is the obviously the you know, the profile of that rum, very, very different. And I just wanted to tell you, by the way, so we are going to see more staged expressions, single pots, you know, the Rockley, the single marks as well. And then we do cane juice. For 5 years, we've been doing cane juice rums, cane and molasses and so on. So all the stuff we do. Also, I have some news. The team wants me to tell you, come to see us. Now we are open for visits. You know, we got Ramon and his team. He wants me to tell you this. So come and see us. We'd love to have you at the distillery, you know, on the sea. So now, you know, obviously when you have, this is not the right name. I didn't do a presentation. This is not a muck pit. This is a fermentation tank. And as you can see, you know, the wooden tank. Now, so now, don't drink this. Don't drink this. Don't drink this. Don't drink this yet. I don't want to. Don't drink yet. Don't drink red. So, let me explain this. Germany has something to do with this. I tell you why.
It smells like a German brand of glue.
Not quite, but it could be. Let me tell you why.
It smells like hatten, okay? Or
You know, well, listen to this. Imagine Germans and the French had a big problem in the 19th century. They loved.
The biggest problem was 1871, I think.
They loved rum. And the government back then, I don't know who it was, I apologize, same in France, said, no, you should drink more cognac or you should drink more local drinks. And they put a huge tax on rum, on the volumes of rum. They put a huge tax. But business people are smart, and they're thinking, how can we go around this? Because consumers want the rum taste. So they went back to Barbados and Jamaica and say, remember, you know how to make rum concentration, we call high esters. Can you make even more concentrated? And remember, for Barbados has been making rum since 1650, Jamaica since probably 1660s, 1670s, and they know how to create flavors. Remember, they know how to make heavy rums. So, and Germans are there. We know how to measure the weight. Remember, that was the first technological country in the world, right? So chemists are saying, we're going to measure ethyl acetate. So actually they can, if you're a distiller, I'm a German trader, and I said, you tell me it's heavy, let me measure. And suddenly I'm the distiller, I'm like, okay, show me. And you're saying, the trader is saying, make it more. And the guys knew how to do this, so they make it more. And they bring it, so remember, most rum, ester level we've seen is 40 grams, 30 grams. If it's the largest brand in the world, maybe 1 gram of ester per hectoliter. Now, I brought you a bottle. It's 2,600. It's illegal to export more than 1,600 out of Jamaica. Barbados, it's legal, otherwise you wouldn't drink in it. But
So
we
it's
are,
like Easter high.
we're like, so it's very, very, very concentrated. Now, what I'm trying to say, this is not really for drinking. This is an ingredient. But yet, I thought it would be cool to show you one of the ingredients of a master blender that never made it out of the distillery. First time made it out of the distillery was at the Rum Congress in Miami. Second time was in France. Third time is today. You know, and so I wanted you to try something that I am sure you never tried, because past 1,600 has never been exported. And so it's only exported in my luggage. But I wanted to show you something where you can have a little sip. Just think now, a drop, like a tear from an eye. And put a lot of saliva in your mouth, dilute it down. And that German glue flavor is right, because your body is saying, be careful, be careful, be careful. And it's not dangerous, I promise you. And you dilute down to a point where it's going to be tasting like the fruits, like the flavors. And I should have brought, but even if you use a little water, even if it's hot water, because this is hard to kill, you can actually, this is impossible to kill. You can use 50% water in this, or a third, and you will taste totally different flavors. Your body will tell you a different story. So this is a secret of master blenders. At Barbados, we create up to 5,000 esters, but obviously was to show you something that doesn't exist out there. That is the beauty and the complexity of Barbados rum, and to create all this. If you tasted high ester rum, 1,600 from Jamaica, I think you did when you came to cognac. You have a lot of more of the Baijiu-ish notes and so on. Here, you have a little glass. You'll see there, even though it's huge, it's King Kong. I think it's still elegant. Maybe it's just me, but I think it's still elegant. And if you do on the nose, find that distance, and you're gonna have all this flavor.
You should sell that, this stuff, to bartenders when they use.
As an atomizer for
when they
daiquiris.
make daiquiris.
Hello.
When they make daiquiris, they should use an atomizer or a few drops of that into a daiquiri. And
So,
this would, bam.
No, it's funny you say this, because I always say, when I was trained as a master blender, you have to swear to secrecy. And I was, I'm a bit rebellious. I disagreed. I said, because we should.
You are rebellious. That's the first thing I've ever heard.
We should share the knowledge. Why are we here today? Is to share the knowledge. So if we share, the more you know, the more pleasure you have. So to your point, when I make these different products, the idea is to say, try this. Let me tell you how it's made. That's why I can show you a picture of the nursery. Before, the team in Barbados said, we don't do that. And I'm like, why? You told this guy you're not doing it. It's like, this is our secret, Alexander. So we sat down, and it's not because we're the owner we're going to say. We said, do you agree that we share that knowledge? And at first, they're like, but you give away our know-how. I said, not really, because I don't know, a lot of people know how to do this, but once you understand, you have so much more fun. And bartenders or drinkers, once you understand what this is, and so this you would have never seen, but it's in the XO, it's in Sealander. If you know now, you're going to be like, wow, it's in there. But your point is interesting. I told the team, in the old days, there's a historian that's wonderful called David Wondrich. And Dave Wondrich, is a good friend of mine, found that in the 18th century, the local aristocracy called these rums au in French, high taste, like haute couture, the haute couture, that was high taste, au goût. Few generations later, it got called Hogo, H-O-G-O. So these are Hogo rum. Some people call rum funk, but it's more the Hogo rum, the Hogo rum. We call them the Hogo monsters, past 1,600. And I was thinking, I'm using this. Why not you? And why not a bartender? Not as atomizer because, you know, esters are super volatile, so you would get in your nose. But as you stir it, and you know, at West Indies Rum Distillery, rum is not only a name, it's a verb. When we think a rum is kind of weak and, you know, watery, we say, this is not rumming. It's a Barbados expression. This rum is not rumming. You know what I'm talking about, right? This is rumming a lot. But what about...
Reminds a little bit of Planterray Rum.
Yeah, in a way. Very different process, but I see what you're saying. And so the idea is, but in that case, that concentration is second to none, right? There's only 2 islands who mastered that for that moment. So the idea is to do that. And I was thinking, maybe we do small bottles. And I was telling the marketing team, and they think my idea are horrible, but anyway, to put a label to say, don't buy this unless you know what it is. Because really, and they think it's a bad idea, but I think it's a good idea. Because if you don't know what it is, you're like, oh, Planterray, I tasted in a bottle, it's nice, I'm going to try that little bottle. And you're like, your eyes are falling off your face. So, but to your point, you know, sometimes you make a drink and you want to make it rum. Yeah. You put like 2 teaspoons of that, and then boom.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, I don't know if you start to like it, but you want to brutalize yourself a little in a good way, you know?
Actually, I noticed if you reach over 1,500 grams per hectoliter, they all have the same distinct taste no matter where they come from.
I will totally disagree with you, but I respect your point of view. Don't you have a Jamaican esters? I'd like to do that with you.
I have the same scent, not taste.
Yeah.
From the UK or from Kennedy, from Young.
Yeah.
And I would say it's because you reach the point where your nose can't distinguish anymore.
I'm telling you one thing. I've listened to you since the beginning. You know your stuff and you're curious. Maybe he gets you a little bottle of this and you taste them if you have some DOK and you try it by side and you will see what I'm talking about.
I mean, it tastes different, but it smells like you have the similarity and
well,
the sound.
It's esters. You're right. You have fruits and esters. For sure. You are in the same repertoire. In that sense, you're right. But you will notice that Jamaica esters rum are very forward with ethyl acetate, and these work with a lot of the other esters. So if you do an analysis, for example, Barbadians like to promote the other esters, which are very hard to do. So I tend to think, but maybe I'm biased, I'd like to hear your point of view, is when you do the Barbadian, you know, heavy rums, Barbados is always the style of Barbadians, you know, in Barbados, when you have a meeting, you don't say yes, you say yes, please. Barbados is always this very balanced, very elegant culture, and you know, and I think the rum is the same way. Even though it delivers 2,600, I still think it's got a class and elegance. But maybe it's me because I've tasted it so many times. And I think you should taste them side by side one day because you seem to really know your things. And what you'll do, you'll be like, okay, I see what he's saying. Because here you're not talking 1,600. You're talking 2,600. So you're 1,000 more of esters. And yet, you know, you don't feel the same violence in a way, you know. But one day you taste them side by side.
Interestingly, it also reminds me a lot of Clermont, like aged Clermont with high esters, which is really interesting. I have the nose of a DOK and the taste of a Clermont.
That's funny. But anyway, I just wanted to share this with you. I just thought, I'm sorry if I was a little violent with you there, but I wanted to show you, to take you inside the engine. I wanted to take you behind the screen. I make this every day. And yes, we could have tasted, you know, a lot of rums with Planteray. I could have showed you beautiful, balanced Jamaican rum. But today we had decided to show you expressions, medium body expressions from the single cask expressions that were very different from one another. To have Jaws, which already has quite a high level of esters. Most spirits, the most commercial rum in the world is a rum that clocks at 8 grams per hectoliter, totally not esters, 1 gram or half a gram of esters. So we're talking a different world. And the idea is not a race for esters. I love elegance and balance. And you know, you've tried, of course, the the Sealander and how we do this, but I just want you to know, there's one rum that I didn't blend. It's called the XO. The XO Plantation was a present to me. You know, in cognac, when you're a blender, first you're assistant blender, then 2 years later you become a blender, or 5 years later, depends. And after 20 years, you qualify for master blender. You don't decide. Your peers are deciding. And there's a party. It is not a black tie party. It's countryside. It's at a tailgate. It's outside. You roast something. And you get a present. So usually if you're a fisherman, you get a whole bunch of fishing things. If you bicycle, you get a bike or a gun. And I got a barrel. And I got a barrel of a rum. That was the XO. Hence 20th anniversary. That was my 20th anniversary as a master blender. And when I tasted it, you know, my grandfather was my master, you know, and taught me a lot of things about distilling and winemaking. And he said, you know, you will see when technical guys are very good and they tell you what they do, it looks hard. It sounds hard. Where they're genius and you see it do it, it sounds easy. And it is easy. And when I tasted the XO, there's 20 types of wood in it, the type of barrels. 20 types of wood barrels, because remember, we work with all this. And there's esters and there's different things. And when I taste this, I'm like, it's easy. Yeah. Yet it's so technical. So I said, you know, I didn't make it, my team. I'm so proud of them. And we decided to launch it. And somebody who doesn't know, you taste that, you're like, okay. You know, I don't compare the team. That's not me, that's the team. But, you know, some Mozart music, sometimes you listen, you know, you think the melody is cute, and then I'm a musician. You look at it, you're like, I'm not pretending we're Mozart, but I'm trying to say that. And I think, yes, you have very technical products like this, but they are part of an ensemble. And they are tools to make beautiful rums. And today, I wanted to share 2 tools. The Jaws. Of course, Jaws is more balanced but still a heavy rum. But I wanted to share with you a monster. We call the, Hogo Monster. You know, in this one, because past that level, you got that concentration. Now, I don't know if you tried with water, but if you do, you'll see you get different flavors. What you could do is try with a lighter style of rum. You know, if you use, for example, we have a nice flowery white rum, which is a 3 stars plantation, and you use a few spoons of this, and I have esters in it, but you're gonna create something that's gonna be different. And there's nothing wrong by doing this. It's just me sharing what we do with you. Anyway, I just wanted to do this and bring this. So I apologize if you thought that was a little violent, but I thought that'd be cool to bring something that'd be very, very different than probably what you will, ever taste. Unless we do little bottles with don't buy it, on it. And you'll see it and you'll smile when you see them. So if you want sometimes to treat yourself in something like this. Remember my grandmother on the big ice cube? You do that, you allow a lot of time, it's gonna be not a movie, it's gonna be a sitcom, It's gonna be a sitcom, So anyway, I don't know if you guys have any questions. I just want to share this with you. It's a great pleasure. Thank you for making this possible.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful. Thanks for the questions. Thank you so much. Really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you to the 2 of you. Thank you.